All right, 5 biggest carnivore mistakes. Hey guys, I have literally interacted with thousands of people doing a carnivore diet over the last decade. And I can tell you there are some common mistakes I see people making over and over again. Let's talk about the 5 most common ones I see. All right, one of the first things I see is people just don't eat enough. It's kind of crazy. You think about you go on a diet. What is the purpose of nutrition? It is to nourish ourselves. And then we get into this situation where we're intentionally undernourishing ourselves, and then we wonder why we're tired, why we don't have any energy, why our hair starts falling out, stuff like that. So you got to eat enough on carnivore, okay? Don't go into it with a mindset that I'm going to restrict, because in many cases that backfires on you, and a lot of people intentionally restrict too much, or they just get so satiated that they have a hard time getting all the food down. And there's some things you can do to help with that if that's the issue, but you got to get enough nutrition. That is the whole point of why we eat in the first place, guys, right? Okay, well, the last one was not eating enough. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people that eat too damn much. It's kind of funny, as much as there are influencers out there saying it's impossible to get on fat on carnivore, you can't gain weight if you just eat meat, I will tell you with 100% certainty that is complete BS. You can absolutely get fat, you can absolutely gain weight, even eating just a carnivore diet, okay? Now, it's harder for sure than say a standard Western diet, but you can overconsume stuff. And you have to remember, as you start losing weight, as you become smaller and smaller, you just don't need as much food anymore, okay? So you have to figure out, and I know it seems simplistic, but figure out where you are going, figure out where you're at, and then, kind of keep pace with that. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to have some level of reason in this. You can't just all you can eat buffet all the time and expect to lose weight after a certain point. Now, even though that might help at the beginning, as you get lighter and lighter and lighter, you have to dial things in a little bit more precisely. All right, this may be my favorite error that people make going carnivore. It is giving a crap what other people think. Really, it's not their business what you put in your mouth, right? It doesn't affect them in any substantial way. You are the person that has to live with the consequences of how you treat your body. And if a carnivore diet is helping you, and I put the caveat there, is if it is actually helping you, then you don't want to be listening to these knuckleheads that'll tell you a bunch of nonsense about why you shouldn't be doing this. This includes, in many cases, uneducated healthcare professionals that don't have any experience with this stuff, that don't know what they're talking about. It includes people online. It includes, perhaps your family. Look, guys, at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own health. Don't outsource it to anybody else. Don't outsource it to me or any other person. It's all about you at the end of the day, and listening to what other people say or what they think about is not necessarily going to help you, right? Particularly when they're critical and negative. All right, this next one is very important, and it is not getting help when you need it, okay? This is something that I see a lot of people, that otherwise probably could have been successful, but they failed just because they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the support. Quite frankly, this is one of the reasons I started the company Revero, and I am very proud of what we've accomplished. I'm very proud of all of our healthcare providers, our coaching, our engineers, the entire team that puts together a tremendous program that costs, less than a cup of coffee a day, to bring outstanding support every step of the way for a dietary transition and supporting you in your health journey. This is something that I think is incredibly important, but not getting that help. Particularly if you're on medicines, if you're sick, if you're diabetic, hypertensive, you have, any kind of medications or medical issues that you're dealing with, as critical as I am about the healthcare system and the physicians, it's important to have a physician in your corner and on your team, right? Because sometimes things go pretty badly. Sometimes there's issues, and it's nice to have a supportive environment and an educated person that's educated about nutrition, and particularly this type of nutrition, on how to deal with things. So getting the support you need, having a team around you, is often paramount to being successful. So don't make that mistake. If you need help, get help. And I'd really appreciate if you guys checked out Revero. Okay, the final one is going to probably irritate some people. And I will tell you, it is incredibly important to have discrete definitions of what something means. A carnivore diet means something, right? It doesn't mean, you're adding fruits and fermented vegetables and all these types of things and calling it carnivore. Carnivore has a very unique and very important role for certain people. So it's important to have a good, solid definition of what that means. From my standpoint, it's animal products, right? And that's basically it. Maybe a little bit of seasoning, spices, maybe coffee or tea, but beyond that, it's animal products, right? And there's versions within that, but we need to define that. But here's the thing. Here's the other error. Becoming too dogmatic, right? This isn't a purity test. This isn't a who can eat the strictest for the longest Olympics, all right? It is about doing what actually is working for you and your body and your condition, your disease, and your lifestyle, what you can sustain and what you can do. Being overly rigid, overly dogmatic is an error for a lot of people. Now, there's a lot of people that thrive on a purely strict carnivore diet. I am largely one of them. I would say that for those that like doing it, that's great. And if it works for you, keep doing it. If it stopped working for me, I wouldn't continue to do that. I will be the first one to say that. I am not overly dogmatic about this stuff, and nor should you be, or nor should anyone else be, right? And no one should be critical of someone else exploring things and finding out what is actually working for them. I just like to see more healthy people. All right, bonus number 6. One of the other errors is thinking that just eating carnivore is going to be enough to take care of your issues. If you're suffering from a disease, diet is critically important. It is essential, but it is not the only thing you need to be doing. In fact, I would say there are probably at least 5 things that you need to be lining up, nutrition being one of the most important, getting good sleep, not being sedentary, being active. You need to be able to manage stress. You need to be in line with your circadian biology, that is the day-night cycle. Let me know if you want me to do a video on those topics. I would encourage you to, like I said, take the time to learn a little bit before you plunge in head first. Don't get discouraged right away. Don't be overly dogmatic. And please, if you need help, reach out and get some. And we're happy to help you with that. All right, guys, let me know what you guys think. Take care.